Hello everyone, welcome to my book nerd series. Today let's read Kiko Higashino's Under the Midnight Sun together. Sasagaki left the station and headed west along the tracks. Despite being October, it was still dreadfully muggy. Yet the ground was dry, so when a truck sped by it, sent up clouds of dust. With this vivid description, the story begins. Sasagaki is a detective and today is his day off. But he got a call regarding a dead body found in an abandoned building, so he decides to go out and take a look. Before he stepped into the building, he stopped to buy a grilled squid nearby and overheard the conversation between the squid lady and a housewife. What do you think it is? Must be something big. Never seen so many cops around here. Maybe some kids got hurt. So here, Sasagaki noticed the keyword kid. Actually, this body was found by a third grader in the neighborhood. This boy was out with 4 of his classmates after Saturday school. They decided to go to this abandoned building and do some grand adventures. Guess what it is? When I was a third grader, I used to observe ants for hours, and that's considered pretty adventurous to me already. For these boys, they decided to go to this abandoned building and crawl through the air ducts and see who can get out first. Anyway, this boy got lost at one point, parted with his friends, and when he finally got out of the maze, he saw in a pitch dark room there was a man laying down on the sofa and found out there's blood on his chest. Now Sasagaki arrived at the scene. His co-workers are already there and provided him 3 very important facts. 1. The murder weapon. It's something thin and sharp, could be a blade. 2. The deceased name. His name is Yosuke Kirihara. He's an owner of a local pawn shop, 52 years old. 3. The time of the death. It's between 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Here, Sasagaki noticed a weird thing. The victim's belt was fastened 2 holes wider than he usually fastens it. And based on the stab wounds gathered at the front, the detectives think the murderer and the victim probably know each other. So the question becomes, what are they doing in that place? Soon, the victim's wife, Yeko Kirihara, came. She is maybe only over 30 years old. It practically indicates she was just a girl when she met her husband. Using a Chinese term, 细思极恐, it means if you dig deeper than what the surface shows you, it's a horrible feeling. Why? She's 30 years old and her husband is 52 years old. Practically, it means when we are in college, our future husband or our future wife is only in elementary school. Yeko later checked his belongings and identified a downhill lighter missing. Why this downhill lighter specifically? Well, the best guess is it is an expensive item, but more importantly, it will become an evidence later in the story. Now the detectives have some work to do. They need to discover the relationships around the victim to find out who is the murderer. I did some research regarding the background. The story might take place around 1973, as the author hinted with the oil shortage. The squid lady we mentioned in the beginning was reading a newspaper. There is a headline, Mercury Result in Seafood. It relates to the Minamata disease trial happened around 1956 to 1960 in Japan. So we can safely assume that CCTV or the fancy technologies were not invented yet. So it takes tons of manual work from the detectives and a real sharp intuition to figure out who's the murderer. The first person Sasagaki questioned is the wife, Yeko Kirihara. He went back to the pawn shop with her at a street named OE3. There's nothing out of ordinary there, just the manager watching the shop. The manager is a 40-year-old man named Isamu Masura. He told Sasagaki the victim left the store around 2:30 p.m. When they are talking, the son of the victim, Ryo Kirihara, showed up. He is a boy in elementary school, 5th grade, so around 11 to 12 years old. Sasagaki noted a strange feeling fell upon him. When their eyes met, the darkness in the boy's eyes made Sasagaki swallow. The next day, the stomach report showed there is buckwheat inside the victim. They quickly narrowed it down to one specific soba shop. Some witnesses say they have seen Yosugi eating there around 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Wait, didn't the manager Isamu say the victim left the store at 2:30 p.m.? So what was he doing between 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m.? Detectives quickly found out the answer. The victim was at a bank withdrawing 1 million yen. So if we approximately consider the time value of money, the inflation, and the exchange rate, all of those issues, just approximately, 1 million yen is considered $7,000 in today's term. Anyway, with this big amount of money withdrew, it is only natural to assume maybe Yosuke was about to purchase something big, or he has some sort of unhealthy hobby, such as gambling or entertainment with women involved. Sasagaki did some background investigation on the wife Yeko already, and they found out she has worked as an escort before the marriage. With her still being the prime suspect, Sasagaki went back to question them. However, both Yeko and Masura had no idea regarding an unhealthy hobby or even just 1 million yen. He didn't say anything to me about 1 million yen. I didn't hear anything about that either. The boss took care of most of the business side of things. But if he was dealing with something that big, I think he would have at least mentioned it. Did your husband spend anything on entertainment? Anything potentially expensive, like gambling? No, he never gambled. He didn't really have any hobbies to speak of. Work was his hobby. Right. Well then, how about any other kinds of entertainment? I'm sorry? Basically what I mean is women. Does he go out to clubs? Anything like that? I don't think he had a woman on the side, if that's what you mean. He wasn't the kind to be able to do that sort of thing. So you trusted him, in other words? I wouldn't call it that. Also, the detectives later learned Yeko was watching TV with Rio between 6 to 7 p.m. Masura had a call, one at 6 p.m. and another one at 6:30 p.m. It's like they have no time for the murder at all. At first, Sasagaki wasn't 100% trusting Yeko, so he went up to Ryo's room and asked Ryo himself. It's not a typical little boy's room filled with racing cars or mangas. There's just an encyclopedia and 2 science books for kids on the shelf. How cars work and how television works. I would say they are pretty handy. Ryo also has a dedicated paper cut hung on his wall made by himself. It is so sophisticated that Sasagaki can only use art to describe it. Ryo also gave him a perfect summary of that night's show. So the boy is a smart one, who not only has dedicated handcraft skills, but also can articulate or portray his thoughts very well. It would have been fairly simple for Yeko and Masura to agree on a story in order to establish each other's alibis, but with Ryo in the picture, it changed everything. Since it is a dead end here, soon the detectives found a new clue. Yosuke visited a local cake shop called Harmony in West 06 after he left the bank, and a new name appeared in front of the detectives, Fumio Nishimoto. The only female customer on the ledger at Kirihara Pawn Shop with an address near the cake shop. Sasagaki and another detective Koga went to pay Fumio a visit. Her apartment building, Yoshida Heights, stood in a cluster of small houses that looked as if they had been thrown together from corrugated tin siding and whatever lumber happened to be lying around at that time. It is not a very nice neighborhood, we can say that much. Fumio is not home, but her daughter Yukio Nishimoto was, and she left the detectives in the apartment waiting for her mom to get off work together. Yukio sits quietly in front of a closet in the small apartment, reading a book, Gone with the Wind. She is the same age as Ryo, Yosugi's son, and has a pretty face with white eyes and remarkably white, smooth skin. Sasagaki feels the small space is very dense, as if it has no light, even though the curtain is up, but the whole atmosphere is gloomy for some reason. He tried to look around to feel a bit tightened mood, but his eyes widened when he saw some packaging paper from the Harmony cake shop on top of the filled garbage bin in the kitchen. He looked over to Yukio, the daughter. Their eyes met for a second, and she quickly turned back to the book. Sasagaki had a strong instinct telling him the girl was looking at the rubbish too. When the clock hits 5, Fumio came home. She is a fine-featured lady with a striking resemblance to her daughter. She told Sasagaki that Yosugi was just a nice man who often came over to help here and there. Nothing nasty happened between them. On the day of his death, Yosugi came around 5 p.m., dropped the cake, and left a little before 6 p.m. Yukio, the daughter on the other hand, always stays in the school's library and comes home after 6 p.m. Fumio also said she went to the supermarket right after Yosugi left and only came home after 7:30 p.m. She has witnesses since she bumped into one of the neighborhood housewives there. I know it's pretty confusing with all the names and the relationships, so here is a timeline I made to simplify everything for you. First, the red zone represents Yosugi Kirihara's time of death. People have seen him walking a little bit after 6 p.m., so his approximate time of death is between 6:15 p.m. to 7 p.m. Second, let's start from the bottom to the top of the graph. Yeko Kirihara is Yosugi's wife. Ryo Kirihara is Yosugi's son, both of them saying they were watching TV between 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. that day. Isamu Masura is Yosugi's employee, the manager of his pawn shop. His alibi is he got a phone call one at 6 p.m. and one at 6:30 p.m. The pawn shop is pretty far from the abandoned building, so based on their timelines, all three of them doesn't have enough time. Then there's Fumio Nishimoto, the customer of Yosugi's pawn shop. She has been seen by a housewife checking out inside a supermarket at 6:30 p.m. Afterwards, people have seen her sitting inside a park nearby the supermarket. On a swing, just sit there until 8 p.m. Yukio Nishimoto is Fumio Nishimoto's daughter. She said she had stayed home after 6 p.m. every day after she comes home from the library. Technically, it is not an alibi, but since she is a kid, Detective Sasagaki didn't pay much attention to it. Fumio should be the prime suspect, but she has a perfect alibi, so detectives has to go for another direction. This time they find a man named Tadao Terasaki. He had been spotted waiting for Fumio in front of the udon place where she works every day and had lunch together. Neither of them seemed to be worrying too much about being seen. After a few days of stakeout, detectives decided to talk to the man directly in his car. Tadao is a wholesaler of cosmetics, beauty supplies, shampoo, and detergent. He made deliveries to other retailers, but also took orders directly from customers. Between 6 to 7 p.m. that day, he said he was making a delivery to a customer, but the customer was not home. He left his card. That cannot be considered an alibi at all because no one was actually there to prove it for him. Therefore, Tadao became the prime suspect now, since he is seeing Fumio, knows about Yosugi's frequent visit to her department, but didn't seem or feel worrying or weird about any of it. Detectives are not buying it, but they just cannot find any evidence. A month has passed by without any progress. Sasagagi finally went home and took a shower, slept through the night for the first time, but he was fully awake when he got a phone call from the police station. Tadao had died. On one of the main expressways through Osaka when making deliveries to customers. They found a downhill lighter in the van's glove compartment, which is extremely similar to the victim's missing one. We made a mistake. Somewhere along the line, we took a wrong turn and it's leading us nowhere. This is the end of Chapter 1, Under the Midnight Sun. Do you believe that Tadao Terasaki is the murderer of Yosugi? I remember I didn't. I first read this book when I was in high school and I read it in Chinese. Even though with the direct evidence of the downhill lighter, everything felt so quick. And just like Sasagagi said in the end, it feels like a mistake. Also, this is only Chapter 1. There is still this much for us to discover. So, some of you might be asking, why don't I just do a whole book at the same time? I remember when I was reading the book, the experience is built up from each chapter, and in the end of the book, that's when everything hits. If I don't go through each chapter, the same shockingness won't be delivered to you. But I really want all of us to read the book. So I hope you can understand it, and I will do Chapter 2, Chapter 3 until I finish this book. Also, this is called Book Nerd Series. I will do multiple books. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.